It's a very good afternoon, and I want to welcome you, viewers, from whichever part of the world you are watching. And I would like to welcome you to this debutant edition of Africa Strategic Leadership Forum, where we look at the concept of strategic management and leadership and how it affects the status of business, the quality of business, the economic spectrum, and everything that affects Africans, and how this advancement tool, when it is embraced in its appropriate sense, can contribute to what Africa really needs to go to the next stage of development and achievement. So in this edition, I'm going to be talking with Mr. Musa Sibanze, who is the Chief Executive Officer of SMS, Glass and Aluminium in Eswatini. Is also an Executive Chairman of Umlabalaba Enterprises Private Limited in Eswatini, and has served as the President of Eswatini Multipurpose Cooperatives Union and the National Confederation of Cooperatives in Eswatini, and also stands to function at the Southern Africa Regional Board of International Cooperatives Alliance, and also at the continental level is also there in the what they call the ACO, for the Alliance of Agricultural Cooperatives of Africa. So I want to talk with him here about the concepts of strategic leadership and how it affects Africa. And I believe that as we discuss, we are going to draw some important insights that are going to also add value to how you and I and everybody in the continent and everybody with interest in the continent will be able to contribute to the advancement of this great continent. So, Mr. Musa Sibanze, it's really a great pleasure to have you. And I've been trying to touch on your background, with this and that, trying to put it together because your profile is very big. And but I want to welcome you.
Thank you, Mr. Chikanda. I'm so pleased to be here, and thank you for having me.
All right. So really this wonderful afternoon, my main interest, actually what brings us to this is because on my recent visit to Singapore, and of course on the way I went via Qatar, I came back via the Emirates and had a stop in Seychelles. I got so inspired by a number of things that I have seen. It's not my first time, of course, to be in some of those places, but this time I really got so challenged that there is a lot that we have kept suppressed on the continent and have not unleashed or released. And this has contributed to maybe how we are lagging so much behind. And I thought that we should have a time to exchange insights in terms of what can be done or what needs to be done or what must have been done. So I want to talk with you in the light of strategic leadership. Of course, we are talking about putting together a series of maneuvers and initiatives to take our societies, our businesses from where they are to where they should be. Now, from your experience, having had such a great profile, what is your understanding of the meaning of strategic leadership as a concept, and what role do you think it really plays, and also what are the costs in terms of the negative costs, the disadvantages that our businesses and our societies in Africa have suffered as a result of maybe not really making use of this advancement tool?
Thank you so much, Mr. Chikanda, for bringing that topic up, and also, trying to bring it out there for whosoever is viewing or listening to our discussion. I think on my end, one of the things I believe when it comes to leadership, someone said everything starts and ends with leadership. So the area of leadership, I believe, is one of the critical areas in anyone's life, be it at home, be it personally, be it in a community, in a country, in a constituency, in a continent. And it is one area that is very, very critical, and it needs to be attended to in that critical way. Now, you have raised the area of, or the issue of strategic leadership, because this then talks to kind of a structured way in which we need to lead in our various portfolios where we are mandated to do such or kind of leading, the way we lead ourselves, the way we lead people, the way we lead our businesses, the way we lead our organizations. I think when it comes to the area of strategic leadership, it talks to what leads you, because you can lead as much as you are led.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe in. So some people, they just lead out of nowhere, and they are following everything that is in front of them, of which I believe the word itself, strategic leadership, it talks to a leadership that follows a certain strategy.
Yeah.
Of which that's where I think it is very, very important for us as leaders to understand how important it is that while you lead, there should be something that is guiding that kind of leadership that you are trying to implement, to enforce, and whatever you're trying to guide, you need to be guided too.
Yeah.
So I think there are certain elements or certain tools that should actually help one when it comes to strategic leadership. I think one of the main areas is when you lead, you need to be led by a certain, I would put it in a language which many people would understand. You need to have a vision of whatever you are leading, because that vision should help.
Yes, Mr. Sivans.
I mean that when it comes to the area of the vision, of having a vision, for that organization, to many people it comes like the vision is there. It's a paper thing. It's, when I say a paper thing, it's a thing that is written down in a piece of paper and filed somewhere where no one even bothers to know what is there. So it's like a thing that doesn't exist actually, because you cannot be led by something that is not even there. Now, when I say a strategic leadership, it's all about having a clear guiding tool that will be there to lead you strategically, and that will help you to formulate other strategies to achieve that strategic goal or that strategic objective towards achieving something. So I believe what can help us in our space is understanding the meaning of leadership in the truest sense. Because if you look in our communities, we elect people to lead us, and most of the time, the people who we elect to lead us in various, look, you have said I have a big constituency when it comes to cooperatives, which mainly cooperatives, they thrive in areas that are mostly found in the rural areas, where we believe a vocal person can make a good leader. And at times, when somebody impresses us in a certain way, that person can become a leader without even understanding what actually that person has to offer. If we say that person must lead us to where? Lead us on what? What is it that we want to achieve? Because we need to place people in positions because we know what they want to do in their own space and what they can do in our space as the people who we want him to lead us. So I believe when it comes to the issue of strategic leadership, it is a very critical component where people need to know what they are following. And it can be broken down into finer pieces that can be even combined together to mean one thing without even confusing themselves in a way. So these are areas where I believe are very, very critical, which are found in our space as an African continent. It is very much wanting, and we need a great help in this area, which then I think this discussion, as we continue, it will address some of the areas.
Oh, that's really very brilliant. As you were talking, I was just thinking of course, I wanted to make a follow-up on some things to do with what you've spoken about. But, what I noticed to be a great challenge also, which I think needs, you may talk on, is that because when you are talking of strategic leadership, it's different from just maybe general leadership we have known, because we are looking at more than one thing. Working together or being worked together to get us to a particular place or a particular dimension. Now, what I'm looking at is in Africa is that when you go, let's say, to the grassroots level of our enterprises, our businesses, let's look at cooperatives, let's look at SMEs and so forth. From what I've personally seen, having also worked in consultancy with some of these, you actually realize that there is generally a very subsistency mentality, which then shuts out any mechanism that could contribute towards development, to a point that people's minds seem to be quite let me use this word maybe carefully. I want to use the word lazy, but I'm talking about being unwilling to exert certain energy to do something. So I've seen like unwillingness to think, beyond a traditional way of doing things, and looking at now the other parts of the world and where the world is coming to, you realize that though we are in the same year, 2023, if we look at it, some of our societies and businesses are in the year 2023 by date. But in terms of development, probably we are in 1953 or in 1947. You see, so I was looking at it to say, is this not something that speaks to the disadvantages of lacking strategic leadership, which can help us to catch up? Like I said, I was in Singapore, and Singapore was not always like it is. The Emirates, they've not always been like where they are. But when they took up, they copied. One of the things that they did is they copied the developed world. I was telling somebody that when you arrive in Singapore, you experience Europe. So you can tell that they managed to copy systems and to catch up. So they surged forward. So I want you to talk about this, like this art of following as a strategic tool that, comes in to undergird or underpin the concept of strategic leadership as we are talking of it and the need of it in Africa.
Strategic leadership, the word itself, it needs to be properly defined in our space and further broken down to the systems and processes that we need to follow. Like you are making an example of a country where you have been. If you're talking about Singapore, you are talking about Seychelles, and other countries out there in the global space. It's like no country just came up to be. Even those countries that we feel they are developed, they learn from each other. They copy from each other. they share ideas, and these things are well documented because you need to identify the space that you are in, and then look at where you want to be, and then you document steps that you need to follow, and probably you need to be guided in that process. And you cannot be guided by your own thoughts, by the way. You need someone who has been there to help you to craft those thought processes that you need to actually put in place in order to achieve getting to whatever place you want to get. Even in the economical space, you also need to have people who are a bit advanced than where you are, so that you can have them help you. We don't need to try and reinvent wheels here. These are things that are there, which are carefully, it has been carefully thought of and has been put into practice, researched and implemented, evaluated, and diagnosed. That there has been a lot of work that has been put into this to try and help people strategically to achieve certain things. Even in the area of development, if we want to be developed, we need to know, where do we want to go in terms of development?
Yeah.
And then we need to have somebody to mentor us in a way to get there. But it's very much disturbing to see how even our leaders flock at the overseas space and go to all these places where people enjoy the vacations than rather to enhance their leadership in terms of learning, and then coming back to try and put those methodologies to try and assist our constituencies, our countries, in our space where we lead. And also, you have touched on a very critical component. It's like, when we were lazy to study, you simply did one thing, to copy. You just did one thing, to copy. And one of the saddest thing would have been to copy from someone who is wrong.
Yeah, yeah.
And aim to pass, and aim to pass at the same time, or copy from someone who doesn't know. So, but in this page, we talk about documented successes of people where we can tell. By this time, you have said it is painful to see that some of us, we have our kids who only know how to play a game, when in other continents, their kids, they develop the softwares that produces a game. So we even pride ourselves of buying kids games, sophisticated games. And this is where we are. And we feel we have achieved when we buy a lot of toys for our kids to play, whereas we should be investing in trying to make them or inspire them to get to the point where they can invent things that they can be proud of. We are a continent that is full of natural resources, which these resources, they need solutions that are homegrown to our own I would say that those natural resources. How? We know in England they need gold, and they have the money to spend. But it's like, on our space, it's good to take our raw gold to England so that they can process and have it for themselves in a more cheaper way, because they got the raw product in a very, very cheaper price. But then when it comes back to us, it is so high, the price is so high that we cannot even afford. And the only thing our children try to do, all they can think of is how to get a gun so that they can rob someone who has the gold, rather than to find a way to go to a space where they study the mechanism. How did it start? What are the processes that these people have put in place or have gone through to come up with this kind of goal? And how can we do it so that we can do this in our own space, so that gold will be mined in our place, processed in our place, and marketed in our place? So I believe there is a lot that is lacking in our space that we need to come back to the drawing board in terms of what we are discussing about today, to say we need leaders who are very much strategic in leading our countries, in leading our economies, in leading our economies, our constituencies to realize the great opportunities that we have, but only not just talking about these concepts, but getting people who have got a deeper understanding and putting those people into positions so that they can advance on what we now understand and what we believe can work and change our fortunes around.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Sirans. I think in the interest of time, for today, we may need to end here, but I really want to appreciate your input, and I think that we are going to also have time with you to have a follow-up on this probably in our next edition, because I could see that there's so much that you are bringing up, and which I would like us to be able to add on in our sequel editions. But otherwise, thank you so much for this wonderful time, and thank you for contributing this to our viewers. It's goodbye for now, and looking forward to see you in our next edition.